And we're back. I'm Jack, your British goat, and today we're getting into 25 common misconceptions about the United States that simply aren't true. I'm looking forward to this one. Let's go. I'm enjoying doing these kind of non-sport American reactions. If you like seeing these,
often draws a lot of flack
put more comments down below what you want me to check out.
Everything. From its foreign policy to the way it runs its domestic affairs. In fact, it seems like there are few things that can divide the world more evenly and more strongly than asking people what their opinion is of the United States. Everyone has an opinion.
My opinion does get me in a bit of
sides of the spectrum. But what is it exactly that causes America to be so messed up?
There's a certain person
Even
I kind of like
politicians
that
can't seem to stop talking about how messed up things
a lot of people don't.
Well, today we're going to take a deeper look. Are things really as bad as everyone seems to think they are? I'm Michael, this is 25, and these are 25 common misconceptions about the United States that simply aren't true.
So I'll let you know in each one that we see if it's something that I thought was a United States thing or not. It'd be quite interesting. That's why I'm like doing these videos. We're learning about the culture
important note,
differences between us.
This list was produced by both a United States citizen and 2 European citizens that relocated to the United States. It's written to be as fair as possible. No, I'm not 2 Europeans. Or am I?
No, you're not.
All right. Let's begin with a really common thought. Americans are ignorant about the world. Americans are held to an unrealistic
comedy.
standard. Since the rest of the world watch our movies and listen to our music, they know a lot about our country. But let's be honest, they never studied it. People actually complain that Americans don't even know that Czechoslovakia doesn't exist anymore. But neither does half the United Kingdom, and they're on the same continent. It turns out that all of us are pretty bad at geography.
No.
You think America would be better at it? However,
I would disagree.
Common thought is that America spends its days spying on everyone. And that's true, but
education over here,
Germany, France, Switzerland, Japan, Iceland, and all the rest of us spy on each other and ourselves.
No,
moving on.
You got that one wrong.
America has been called racist. Please don't take this the wrong way. Racism definitely exists, and it makes the news. But you know what else? America.
It all depends on what media you're consuming.
All of the world watches it, sometimes more than their own media. So when something super bad happens in other countries, it might not even make the back page. Next, it's a common misconception that Americans don't use public transport. While it's true that we use cars a lot, many regions in America have...
The lack of kind of trains in America has always baffled me. Like, you would think there should be train lines going through that vast emptiness in the middle of America, but there's not. That really does surprise me.
Great public transport, or at least just as good as Europe. Besides, what good is a train if nobody can afford it? We're looking at you, UK. Moving on.
Well, there is
America
that.
does/has.
You wouldn't take a train over here.
Fill in the blank. America is far from being a unified entity. Each state.
In fact, I'm not going to pause it too many times, but I can fly on a plane to another place in England cheaper than it would to take the train, which is crazy because trains are supposed to be that economical option. It's crazy.
Laws, cultures, and quirks. Some states have the death penalty.
And I'm talking like
some
10 times cheaper.
And some don't. Some have free college.
It would cost me £40 to get a plane to London. Or 400 on the train.
So just like you can't say Europe is so-and-so, you can't say the same about the US. As an additional note, the states are far more independent than many of us realize. In fact, every state even has its own military, known as the Guard. Furthermore, some states pass legislation that directly contradicts the federal government. This is because in the US, the federal government is not the highest authority, the states are. To further establish the fact
that interesting. That's very interesting.
Many believe that Americans only speak one language. But that's no
Well, you've got Spanish.
Have you ever been to France? Or the UK? Or Italy? Or how about China?
I can't lie. This guy's coming across a bit of a bellend. You're speaking English, so you're actually speaking my language. So we can't say, oh, look at the UK. You're speaking the language. And the UK has multiple different languages. So you're just showing your ignorance. There's Welsh, Irish.
Most of them only speak one language too. That being said, over 20% of the US is bilingual. Now, let's talk about the military, because people outside the US will preach that America's military does, again, fill in the blank. Nobody is naive enough to think that the US doesn't have selfish interests in mind when it invades a country. There isn't a nation on earth that would do that selflessly. But whenever the bad goes down, it's just as common for other countries to complain that America should do something. On a more or less lighter note, Americans are fat. You ever been to the UK lately? There are even scandals because obese patients are getting turned down for surgery. Yes, America does have an obesity problem. but not all citizens are involved in it. I am.
It's
A
a
big
gym,
part
my
of the
boy.
United States is fairly health conscious and is consistently working to help the overweight population.
I have
better
big
their lives.
moves, though. I can't lie.
Thanks, healthy people.
I
And while
know.
we aren't perfect, many complain that America is worse than other developed nations in, well, everything. There are many
Education,
statistics,
you're
child
very low
mortality,
down.
literacy, etc., where the U.S. falls behind.
I'm just going by
countries
that
like Norway
TikTok
and
that keeps
Iceland.
going around from
But
that
those
film.
statistics are based on averages. In Norway, most of the 5 million inhabitants are rich, white, and Norwegian. If you took a similar sample of rich white Americans in the U.S., you would find that the statistics are almost exactly the same. The fact is that the U.S. is
Okay,
hugely
you got a good
diverse,
point there.
and the American experience is completely different with and without money. Translation: the problem isn't healthcare or education; it's economic inequality, almost exclusively.
Yeah, that's a
Speaking of
very
inequality,
good
many
point.
make the simple but powerful assumption that
Very good
America
point.
just isn't safe.
I
This is
have
what
that
citizens say
thought.
until they actually come here. By the same
But
logic,
I do wanna
Paris,
move to
Brussels,
America,
London,
so-
Madrid, and almost every other city in Europe is unsafe as well. Yes, there are guns, but most Americans have never seen or heard a gun being fired. In fact, most Swiss citizens are much more familiar with gunfire than us Americans. All this being said,
If that's true, that surprises me, and that is probably so far the main misconception that I have. In my head, every fucker's got a gun because that's what you see in TV show and films. My way of understanding America is through that, which I'm hoping when we do these videos, we can upload 3 to 4 a week American type videos alongside my main sport ones. But I'm hoping to learn more. Like that is so far my only misconception.
so far, people still expect all Americans to relish in the life of our stereotypes.
I don't
Goods,
believe
fast food,
him
freedom.
when he was saying that.
What I'm saying is, a lot of the world looks at America as overly patriotic. But here's an honest question: have you ever met a Russian, Australian, a proud member of the UK? There's no shame in having pride in your country.
This must be old. Hold on. Yeah, no one that lives in the UK that's not a lefty would tell you that they like the UK. I fucking hate living here. The government, I am not patriotic to the UK at all. Fuck Keir Starmer.
Us Americans are definitely patriotic, but so is the rest of the world, as they should be. It's not a crime to be proud of where you came from.
It is
doesn't
nowadays.
stop others from thinking
It
that
is
we can
nadays.
boast about America whenever we travel abroad.
I can't say I'm proud to be
This is
British.
largely
I'm not, but I
anecdotal.
couldn't
In
say
America,
it.
Americans like to complain, just like the rest of us.
Hey,
Only a few of them ever even leave the country, so you're meeting an
we want more of
unrepresentative
these on the screen.
But in their defense, many times, they're right.
America do have
Yes,
beautiful
this
women.
can
Like,
hit hard in the pride spot,
crazy.
but maybe Europeans could stand to smile a bit more, right? No? Okay, fine, back to the
nothing to smile about.
leave me alone face. By the way, that part was written for our European representative, by our European representative. I love all of you. Anyways, statistics viewed by outsiders show that the U.S. is lagging behind. Similar to topics we've already discussed, there's another factor that we have to take into account: reporting. Every nation reports its own statistics. This means that making statistical comparisons between two developed nations, like the US and the UK, is an exercise in futility. The
Could be
data
made-
is
could
just
be made
too
up.
close and won't reveal much except that the US counts people one way and the US counts them another. That still doesn't make this misconception true. Americans are fake. Here's the thing.
I see what you're
In
saying.
Europe, citizens are almost proud of the fact that they're really standoffish. But once you get to know them, they're your friend for life. Well, here's a newsflash. Once you get to know an American, they'll also be your friend for life. The thing is, though, they don't use this as an excuse to be a jerk in the beginning. This list sounds great coming from an American. I was totally the one who should have read this one, but I digress. On a totally different but very popular misconception, Americans are the only ones who call football soccer. Actually, a lot of the world calls
They
it soccer.
do. I think it's
Even
vile,
parts of
but
Ireland still call it soccer.
I can't. Like, that's one of the hardest things to do in this channel is when I say football, when I'm doing the American football videos, my mind does still go to soccer, and I am trying hard to call it soccer so it's easier for you guys to understand what I'm saying. But there's definitely words like you say uniform, I'll say kit. I'm keeping my words up there. But see what he's going to say.
Still, I'm glad you asked. It was actually the British who coined the term soccer.
Well, that is
the
true.
word soccer is an abbreviation of association, and first appeared in universities in the 1880s, sometimes using the variant spelled soccer with a K. The word is sometimes credited to Charles Refford Brown, an Oxford University student said to have been fond of shortened forms such as brekkers for breakfast and rugger for rugby football. Britain actually started using the word football in the late 20th century.
Never say
possibly
rugby
because
football,
people incorrectly
ever.
saw it as an Americanism.
I want to put that out there if you're American or ever. Never say rugby football. That is vile. That is disgusting. It's coming from someone who played high-level rugby. If someone said that to me, I would go mental. It'd be like me coming up to you saying, "Oh, you're playing your hand deck."
I'm learning something. To our American viewers, did you know that people in Europe make fun of you for using air conditioning? Why would they do that?
I bloody wish it.
Leave the window open. Mosquitoes, at least in Florida. But
Sweating
here's
my
why they might be
ass
joining
off
us
right
soon.
now.
During the 2003 European heatwave, 70,000 people died. This was in large part due to the fact that European homes and buildings are not typically equipped with air conditioning. While they laugh at the Americans for this, hotter summers are going to force them to take appropriate measures.
Again, the main reason for that, though, is our houses are built to keep the heat in because it's cold 90% of the year. So at the moment, my house, I'm in like my office, and I am sweating. And it's not even that hot outside, but it's to keep all the heat in. I've had to go and buy a fan because it's AC units do not exist. Unless in like our shops.
Children and the elderly are very susceptible. Again, I stand by mosquitoes. I'm not opening my window in the summer. Winter, absolutely. Open windows. Moving into the top 9. That's a weird number. Top 9. Many parts of the world accuse the United States of accounting for 25% of the world's carbon emissions. Not so nice. But it also accounts for 25% of the world's economic activity. The truth is that several nations, including countries like Canada, have higher per capita emissions than the U.S. Next, let's talk about...
Yeah, but that's only because there's more people in America.
Actually, both British English and American English have diverged from a common 16th century ancestral standard, and in some ways, American English is closer to the original than British English. For example, American English has, for the most part, retained the language reciprocity pronunciation of the R in words like hard, while British has, for the most part, dropped it. Furthermore, this shift in British English happened around the time of the American Revolution when wealthier Londoners wanted to distinguish themselves from the lower classes. This is only one example, but it goes to show that British English is not an unchanging standard any more than American English. On a totally different note, did you know that...
I do hate that, though. British English. No, it's English. Wales, a country in Britain, has its own language. Like, I don't like that term, British English.
Don't all live in the suburbs. Nope, not true. The fact is that in America, you have plenty of people that live in cities like New York, Washington, D.C., San Francisco, Chicago, Boston.
I would say more would be city.
In fact, several regions of the United States are very European, like the Northeast Corridor, for example. The difference between the U.S. and Europe is that if you want to live in the suburbs in the U.S., you can, but you don't have to. Now, this next one is just...
I'd be classed as suburbs.
Americans are all dumb rednecks.
I live in a village.
Well, there are certainly Americans who fit
I don't
this
know what you would
stereotype.
call a village.
The vast majority don't. Most Americans live in cities near the coasts. Most of them are educated, and most of them are not very different from Europeans in any significant way. Every country has a less educated populace that they themselves make fun of.
True.
Even sophisticated nations like Sweden and Switzerland. Fair warning,
we call them benefit scab pikeys. Look, if you are liking this video, please go down below right now, take it off the full screen and hit that subscribe button. It should have just flashed purple for you. I'm going to drink my drink for a couple of seconds, just letting you hit the subscribe button right now. It's empty. I need another one. That's a shame. Did you do it? If you did, welcome to the GOAT Squad. If you didn't...
5 on our list get a bit dark and crazy, starting with the idea that America is imperialistic. In many parts of Europe, the United States is seen as an aggressive imperial power, even more so than Russia and China. This is largely because our military presence both in Europe and everywhere else.
I think if you're
strong defense, Americans never forced you to watch our movies, quarter our soldiers, obey our laws, or get permission to leave your own countries.
I don't think so.
The Russians that did that, and much, much more. Food for thought, after World War II, the Americans liberated and left. The Russians liberated and stayed. All right, number 4 is sure to be a shocker to a lot of foreigners.
Sure.
Americans don't actually all walk around with guns. It's just not true. Except for a few places, the only people you ever see carrying guns in America
we've already spoke about this one, my guy.
In fact, you'll see more people walking around with guns in Switzerland than you ever would in America. Okay. We admit that, like most stereotypes, there is some truth to this next one, but it's...
But here's the thing, again, I don't mean to keep pausing it, but it's giving me a lot of food for thought. If I could legally carry a handgun, I would. So, as much as people are saying, oh, they're all carrying a gun, if you could, like Switzerland, you would.
Been wildly blown out of proportion.
Do you know what I mean?
Americans are all crazy Christian right-wingers. There's something so right about saying it with that accent. Yes, there are a lot of Christians in America, and while some of them are crazy right-wingers,
See,
most of them aren't. In fact,
Again,
if you
I
ever get a chance
couldn't
to go and
care.
stay with one of those crazy Christian families, you'll see that most of them are just genuinely sweet people that go to church on Sundays. This next one sounds like
That's
a
more
legit
of like
stand-up joke.
you be wherever
If you get
you
injured
want to
and
be
can't
and
pay
wherever you
for
want to
it,
follow.
you'll just die in the street. Yeah, many people in Europe.
Yeah,
think
your
that's
health insurance
happening
is
here.
crazy.
As with most things that concern America, they're wrong. You can't be denied emergency medical care in the U.S. That would go against the Hippocratic Oath. The difference is that you get a bill in the mail a few months later. Of course, debt
So what
is
if you
another issue, but
don't
let's
pay
get
it?
into that right now.
Because don't get me wrong, like all I've ever done in a hospital trip is I've broken my ankle before. Right, I was in hospital for 8 days, had surgery putting plates in my ankle, and then had surgery taking all the plates out afterwards. I'd imagine that probably would have cost me a couple £100,000 or dollars. But over there, didn't cost me. All it cost me was my sanity of being in a hospital for 8 days.
Americans
Like,
are all in debt.
Crazy.
Actually, European citizens carry more debt than Americans. The average household debt in the U.S., OECD, is 113% of the household's income. In the UK, it's 156%.
Wow.
In Sweden, 173%. And in Denmark, it's a whopping 305%. So, what are some misconceptions about the U.S. that you'd like cleared up? Or do you live in America and want to...
This is a very interesting video, and on that one, I think it would be more. America probably has more. How do I say it? If I was in debt, it's because I've put myself in debt on purpose. I've taken out a loan. Whereas America, I feel like it's more. You've broken your leg, you're in debt for the rest of your life. Like. I don't understand how healthcare works, so maybe as a video video. Let me know what you see down below. Is there anything I should learn? Do you agree with all of this? Do you disagree with anything I've said? Let me know that down in the comments, and of course, way down. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Hope you have a great day. I'm post.